All right, this is the songbird cooking. My son left. He only stays for a minute at a time. And so I'm going to show you. This is what's going to happen here. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to let the water run slowly. Cold water, of course. Now, what I did was I took the chicken out. And I did not wipe the pan out because, see, that is flavor for your gravy, okay? So there you see the onions that were fried with the chicken that I took out. And there's some oil in here. You see a fresh onion, another fresh onion. I have some rice here that's perfectly done. And as you can see, I don't have to move it. You can see that the grains are not stuck together. And that means that it's perfect. Okay. And because I rinsed it, wow, you know, when it was in between done, halfway just about done, I rinsed the rice, I filled it up with water, cold water, and drained it to get the extra starch out so that it won't stick together. You can leave that starch in there when you want it to be stuck together. Preferably, I like my rice to be loose. Okay. So, now I have these onions. Now, I don't want to burn these onions. I'm going to put some flour in. You know, really, you should be stirring it at the same time you're putting it in. You should be stirring it. Okay, that's the proper way to do it. It's just that I'm holding the camera at the same time. But if I wasn't holding the camera with one hand, I'd be stirring it. With the other hand, I'd be sprinkling, not pouring, sprinkling flour into this oil. You can choose the oil you'd like to use, depending on what you can and cannot have. Okay. Now, it's going to get really thick because that's what it's supposed to do. All right. It gets thick first. You can see it's turning brown. It's turning brown like it needs to. Okay. That's what it has to do. It needs to turn brown. Unless you want white gravy. You can have white gravy, but it won't. You still need to cook the flour, okay? If you want white gravy, then you would wipe the pan out and all of that. And you'd be sure it won't, even, actually this is like considered a little white gravy. It's not brown as it can be. Some people like their gravy darker, so you can let it cook. You gotta cook the flour because, see, you know, when you put the water or the broth, whatever you want to use for liquid, you don't want the flour to taste like flour. You want the flour to have like a nutty flavor. That's what makes the flavor of the gravy really good. Not just the liquid you put in it. You can put the liquid in it. You know, you can put broth in it and it'll still taste like broth and some kind of paste or something. You know, because the flour is very bland. So you want the flour to cook. You know, you want the flour to develop flavor and absorb the flavor of the onions, you know, before you put any liquid in it. That assures you to have a really great broth, gravy. You want it to be really good. I smell it now. See, now I smell the flavor of the onions, the cooked onions and the fresh onions going into the flour. I smell the flour becoming nutty, like, nut flavor. It smells really good. Let it cook just 5 more seconds more. Preferably, I really don't care if it's dark or light gravy, as long as it tastes good. It really needs to taste delicious for me. You know, gravy is a serious matter. And again, you should be using 2 hands. If you prefer, you can use boiling water. You know, you don't want to use hot water from the tap, though. You never want to do that. Not ever. Okay, or you could do it this way. You can use fresh cold water. See, because it's gonna, see, and it's still thick. Okay, it's gonna thicken up anyway. The pan is real hot because at this point, ooh, look how thick it got, see? See, at this point, the fire's on high. Let me tell you, my fire is on high. Or you can use it, you know, it starts out that way. You want to start out on high. You want to start out on high. See how it just keeps heating up real fast. Because the pan is really hot. So that's why it didn't matter that I used boiling water. So it's okay. And it looks like that right now, but it's okay. Just let it do what it needs to do. You know, it's doing what we need it to do. You want to put a little salt and a little pepper. You want to make sure you don't put too much. Ever want to put too much salt or too much pepper? You know, you want to taste it in between. You want to, if you need to measure it, if you're not someone who cooks all the time, then you definitely need to use something to measure it. Okay? Otherwise, you'll have a disaster. Because you can always add. You can't take away, you know? Unless it's an emergency and you ever just really do put too much of seasoning, then you just, you can pour half of it off. The whole, yep, you just have less, and then add some water. Not more broth, because that has flavor. You know, if you had too much seasoning, that's just only if you